but marriage under American law shall have no bias whatsoever. Because, after all, which is more scary? Anti-gay crusader Ted Haggard, who preaches against gay sex while having gay sex on meth? Or Sulu from Star Trek? Hello, everyone. If you believe in the separation of church and state, and if you believe in the values of Virginia's own Jefferson and Madison, then you are my boss, and I work for you. Because Richard Dawkins asked me to work on your behalf on policy strategy in Washington, D.C., on political strategy in every state of the Union, and with the richarddawkins.net, the most visited website in all of secularism, to unite the world to help make it a better place. That's a wonderful task and opportunity and a great job to have, and I'm very honored to have it. Now, some of you may have heard a rumor, a naughty rumor, that Richard Dawkins may have implied that certain passages of the Bible are not 100% accurate. Well, you can just ignore that book because I've been to the Creation Museum in Kentucky. And I know how the dinosaurs got on the ark. It was because they were baby dinosaurs. I know this because it says so on a plaque, so it must be true. Yes. And I have to tell you that the story of Noah is very, very important to American public policy today. A lot of you may not know of Congressman John Shimkus, but Congressman Shimkus is a chair of a committee in Washington. He is one of the 535 people who make decisions for 300 million Americans. And in an official hearing of the United States Congress on global warming and on the threat of the seas rising, Congressman Shimkus said, well, you don't need to worry about the seas rising because in the Bible it says, one flood, Noah's flood, that's it, that settles the matter. Case closed. Much appreciated for that information, Congressman Shimkus. You see, because Congressman Shimkus is one of many in Congress who consider themselves experts on the Bible. I write about them in my book. I call them the Fundamentalist 50. And these are some of the most extreme in Congress. And they feel that they are experts on the Bible and that they can impose that expertise on you through American law. But me, I have to admit to you, I'm not much of an expert on the Bible at all, really. In fact, about all I know about the Bible is what I learned when I was about 12 years old. I got a children's Bible, and I decided to read it while I was on summer vacation with my parents, one of those road trips out west. And we were driving through the desert, and I'm reading the children's Bible, so it feels kind of biblical, you know. And I got to the part in the Bible where God instructs Abraham to kill his son. And I learned from the Bible that this is a good thing, that it shows that Abraham is God-fearing. And I'm looking up at my dad in the driver's seat, hoping he's not too God-fearing, because this doesn't look too good from my perspective. But it was that first moment for me that some questions came up. One question, would a moral God or anyone else suggest that a parent should kill their child even as a test of loyalty? Would a moral person consider a suggestion to kill their own child from a God or anybody else? And then third, are children some form of property that can be treated as chattel and religious sacrifice? Well, that's an ancient story, a legend. But I want to tell you a true story from the 21st century in the United States of America. There was a girl named Jessica Crank, And Jessica Crank had a tumor growing on her shoulder. And it was a perfectly treatable tumor with modern medical science, except that her mother did not believe in modern medical science. She believed in the Epistle of James. And there is a statute in Tennessee where Jessica lived that said that there's a separate standard, a more lenient standard for so-called faith-healing parents than for other parents. And so as a result, the tumor on Jessica's shoulder grew and grew and grew until it was literally, not figuratively, literally the size of a basketball on this girl's shoulder. She suffered horrible, agonizing, torturous pain, worse than anything that ever happened at Abu Ghraib. And then she died. That happened in the 21st century in the United States of America. And you might think, well, Tennessee or certain states, 38 states have laws that create separate standards for so-called faith healing, but it's not faith healing, it's faith harming, and often it's faith killing, and hundreds of children have died in this way. We heard the former governor of Alaska talk about so-called death panels, but this was a real death panel where one person decided the death of another human being and the torture of them first. We hear about right to life, but where were the right to lifers for this girl and the many who are in her situation? And with the imprimatur of American law, that is the situation we face in America today, and it's something terrible that we need to change. I want to give you a second form of religious abuse with American policy that pertains to young people. Now, in this very area, Governor Perry and Congresswoman Bachmann have spoken frequently and adamantly against government spending, and they also spoke at your neighboring Liberty University quite recently. Sarah Palin and Herman Cain, who also speak frequently and adamantly against government spending, will speak very soon at Liberty University. Ironically, however, in a 2011 report, through federal student aid, Liberty University receives $445 million, almost $500 million in federal money through this revenue stream. They receive this money despite the fact that Liberty University expressly discriminates on the basis of religion in faculty and in the student body. Campus pastor Johnny Moore said, and I quote, "One of the distinguishing factors of Liberty is that every single student here takes a class called Creationist Studies." And note that this school doesn't claim to be a Bible college, simply turning out preachers. No. People from Liberty University are taking teaching jobs in public schools. They send people out to be psychologists and in other professional titles. They advertise themselves as offering degrees in biology, but in order to get a job at Liberty University in the biology department, you're required to be a young earth creationist. The dean of the Liberty University Law School advocates specifically teaching creationism in American public schools. That dean also associates with a website called Free to Pray, which falsely asserts that the government can stop you from praying in school. That is a complete false statement. No, the Supreme Court said that there can't be government-orchestrated prayer in school, but people are free individually to choose what they wish. Liberty founder Jerry Falwell opposed the tenure system, and he told us expressly why. Falwell said, "Where tenure is practiced, eventually evolution is taught, and pretty soon that kind of heresy," and that's what he calls it, that heresy leads to another level, and then another level. And then, he says, it will be hard to find someone who believes the Bible from cover to cover, close quote. Liberty University, with a budget accessing $500 million in federal funds, opposes academic liberty. Liberty University is the unliberty university. It is in fact a violation of the human rights of young people who deserve a decent education. The moral view of Liberty University is perhaps embodied by Mr. Falwell's statement regarding the September 11 attacks. He said, "All of them who have tried to secularize America, I, Jerry Falwell, point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen," referring to September 11. This is not reasoning. It is religious propaganda of the most vicious type. Contrast this with Pearl Buck, a graduate of Randolph College. Pearl Buck, who wrote The Good Earth and won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Pearl Buck wrote, and I quote, "I feel no need for any other faith than my faith in the kindness of human beings. I am so absorbed in the wonder of the earth and the life upon it, then I cannot think of heaven and angels." Close quote, one of your alumni. Virginia's own Thomas Jefferson specifically wanted education to be free from religious domination. In 2011, Newsweek ranked Randolph College #1 with the most accessible professors. But the access that these great professors offer is to independent, rigorous, academic thinking. That is what's great about that access, and that is what you should be so proud of. Federal dollars, no tax dollars, directly or indirectly, should be sent to universities that engage in religious propaganda. It is a violation of rights, and it must end. I have given you only 2 examples, but in my book I give many examples of American public policy today, not something that might happen in the future, but something that's happening today that we must address, where there is religious privileging in law that hurts real people, whether it's in land use planning, whether it's things that affect children, women's reproductive rights, health care, the elderly. The catalog is long. But I want to tell you today that we at the Richard Dawkins Foundation have a modest plan, the Richard Dawkins Foundation US, to take over the United States. And I want to tell you about it. I say it somewhat humorously, but in seriousness, that we have a principled view, a secular view, a Jeffersonian view of what America should be, and I want to show you the 10 principles of what America should be like. First, #1, our military shall serve and include all Americans, religious and non-religious, with no hint of bias and with no hint of fundamentalist extremism coloring our military decisions at home or abroad. Principle #1. This is Stephen Hill, who was booed at that Tea Party presidential debate because he is a gay serviceman. There are probably people here who served in the military. Let us show the right respect for them and offer them a round of applause and thank them for their service. Principle #2, any federal or state-funded program, whether offering services domestic or foreign that relates to reproductive decisions, shall be based on science and public health, not on religious bias or the denigration of women or secular minorities. We can't have that happen. #3, healthcare professionals shall fulfill their professional duties, and they must do so without a hint of religious bias, or they must find another job, and that includes fundamentalist pharmacists who turn away rape victims from Plan B. We will stand up for this principle. Principle #4, there shall be no bias in land use planning or environmental law or employment law based on religion or lack thereof. It is wrong. It must end. Principle #5, marriage can be defined by religious congregations howsoever they choose within their own services. But marriage under American law shall have no bias whatsoever. Because After all, which is more scary? Anti-gay crusader Ted Haggard, who preaches against gay sex while having gay sex on meth? Or Sulu from Star Trek? When facing end-of-life decisions, all Americans shall be guaranteed control over their own bodies without being thwarted by religious bias. Number 7, America's youth shall never be subjected to bias in education. If there's 1 penny of government funds, there can't be 1 iota of religious bias. Take that, Liberty University. Next, the composition of Congress and legislatures shall include secular Americans, and there shall be no bias against secular candidates. Because when you look at America, which is it that we choose? Do we want Santorum here, who's there, and been elected to Congress? Or how about Bill Gates? Even if you like Apple, he does a lot of good works. And he's a non-believer. He's a good man. Next, the fundamentalist 50 that I list in my book, who are in Congress right now, are they the ones who serve this country? Or how about Brad Pitt? Brad Pitt, who keeps going back to New Orleans to help people. He needs representation in Congress, too. Next, as to children, and this is so important, there should be one consistent standard pertaining to the health and welfare of children, regardless of a child's parents, school, or child care center. They're all human beings who deserve human rights and protection. Number 10, medical, technical, and scientific innovation shall be dedicated to the health and advancement of our fellow citizens and must never be impeded by religious bias. We can help with Parkinson's. We can help with spinal cord injuries. We can make the world a better place. That's what this is about. And there's this myth. There's this myth of the angry atheist. Well, that's not true. There is a problem in this country with those who are in the fanatical fundamentalist world. And our stand should be to overcome the fanatical fundamentalists, and I think we can do so with the affable atheist. And let me just say to you that you heard Richard Dawkins' incredible qualifications as a scientist. We know about this. His place in history is assured with his scientific reputation. And speaking as a politician who's been on the rubber chicken circuit, if you will, for many years, I so admire that Richard Dawkins, who could stay back in Britain, comes time and again to hotel rooms he doesn't know, traveling late at night, going in rental cars, coming back to the United States time and time again so that he can help make this world a better place. It is a truly humanitarian effort, and he, with his book God Delusion and his efforts, is doing something historic for which the world will thank him for generations to come. And lastly, I say to you about his book, The Magic of Reality, about which he will speak, that contrast how Richard Dawkins treats children with what I've described. The treatment of children by religious bias in law, whether it's young children or young people in education, it's not treating them with respect. It's not treating them with human rights. What Richard Dawkins does with this book is give young people the respect to gather information on their own so that they can be the people who can change the world. I hope that you will get involved. Richard Dawkins has shown what he can do to make this world better when he really doesn't need to make that effort. And I think it is therefore incumbent on each and every one of us to make our effort to make this world a greater place. Visit our website at richarddawkins.net. Make sure that you get involved. I will work with you. And if you invest your time, your money, your efforts, we can make this world a better place. Thank you very much.